Hey, what's slicing everybody? Chris back with CAC Knives. Hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. I'm doing this video because this knife is Christmas themed, and I figured this was the time to do it. I'm actually going to be reviewing the knife itself, which is the Drop Bear 2, but since it has this very pretty Christmas theme, I gotta do it around this time, right? So this exact version is gorgeous, by the way. This is the green Crystalized Titanium White Mountain Knives exclusive version of the Drop Bear 2 with gold liners, gold hardware, besides the little bit of red accents here. And same going on this side. And I'm trying to move it around with the light here because the crystallization changes colors depending on if you look at the right angle in the light. Now there's a lot of Drop Bear 2s out there and a lot of different configurations. I will be reviewing this specific kind of configuration. If it is still available, I will link it down in the video description. It may not be. Like I said, this was an exclusive with a limited amount of pieces. But you can get plenty of Drop Bears and plenty of different designs. There's a lot of acrylic ones. G10, they recently released a cool looking kind of multicolored micarta. But yeah, there's a lot of them out there. But I will be reviewing this titanium version specifically, which to my knowledge does not have a review on the internet for this exact model. Now, before we get into the review, if you guys could help me out by liking this video and subscribing to the channel, I would really appreciate it. I have a pretty cool knife collection that continues to expand and change, and if you guys are into seeing things like that, that's the best way to help me out. Doesn't cost you anything and allows you to see some cool knife content every week. But anyway, let's get into the review. Now what we have here is a very lightweight, considering it's full titanium, knife. Yeah, very lightweight. This knife, it's about right at the size you'd want it to be. It is in 14C 28N blade steel. Here's some information on the knife. 2.8-inch blades, so under 3 inches, which is great. It has their clutch lock. That's basically their name for their axis lock. And yeah, came in that cool box as well. Let's get some size comparisons here between a couple very common knives. We got the QSP Penguin here, and we have the Svivi Elementum, of course. So actually it's a little bit smaller than both of these. Not a significant amount smaller, but a little bit. Which is fine, you know, so we're right in that EDC size range. I actually think I like this range the best. I tend to grab knives that are more this size more often than the larger knives, just because the larger knives can be a little bit harder to carry. Let's also bring out another Kizer. This is my Militol that was heavily customized by Colin's Crazy Creations. The Militol is a larger knife, as you can see here. But yeah, very different aesthetics on these knives. But hopefully that gives you a good idea of the size. We can go ahead and measure the overall length here in inches. So it said we have a 2.8-inch blade. Seems to be the case. About 6 3/4 inches overall, I'd say. Cutting edge, though, what you want to say, 2 3/8 of an inch, or 2 3/8 inches, I would say, give or take. Though, if you count the little swedge there, you got a little bit more cutting edge than that. So on this knife, we have some cool, unique features. The stuff on the blade I actually don't like, but that's just specific for this knife and a little bit nitpicky. You know, if you really wanted full Christmas theme, I suppose you probably like that, but the original rendition of this knife did not have those on there. I do like the different three-way satin blade here. I always love when satin blades have multiple like directions they go. It looks super cool, and it looks crazy. Even on the camera, that looks crazy. I love how shiny it is. It definitely goes with the knife very well. The clutch lock operates very smoothly, though I will say, compared to other similar locks, it is a little bit stiffer. You see that, how it doesn't. All my other clutch lock knives I have move freely on their own when that happens. Now, it's not necessarily a negative. It's just something to be aware of. If you have other knives that use this axis style locking mechanism, this one is a little bit more stiff. One of the stiffer ones I've ever gotten, not the stiffest one that I've ever gotten. I will say that, but it still operates very smoothly, still very fidgety, still very fun. The lockup is very solid, zero blade play, so everything's all still good. It's just something to be aware of. They milled out the inside very well by pretty much the amount of milling that they can do for it to remain functional and have areas for these screws. And this knife in particular, the hardware actually amplifies the knife and makes the knife better because how it's all gold accented. Now, one thing I did think was very strange is the pocket clip on this one. Not necessarily the design of the clip, it's very nice and everything, but just the size of the screws. They are recessed screws, so that's good. But the size of the screws, look how massive those screws are. That's crazy. Craziness. But anyway, let's go over my 5 talking points. Whenever I review a knife, I like to go over 5 things specifically and grade it on each scale. And then at the end, we can determine if I think this knife is perfect or not. So, fit and finish. You know, there has been a lot of discussion about Kizer's knives not being finished as well. They've been releasing a crazy amount of models here lately, a crazy amount of customization on models, and to be honest, I will agree with the community that with too many releases can lead to screw-ups, and they definitely are leading to screw-ups. There's a lot of issues going on within some of the Kizer models and some of the Kizer quality control. All the knives that I've gotten from Kizer, even recently, I've not had that issue with. This knife is no exception. Besides maybe that little bit of stiffness, this knife's great. I've not found any issues whatsoever in the knife, and I think they did a good job on this one. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. That issue with a little bit of stiffness, it isn't even really a negative. Like, see how it still fell down? Like, it still falls down on its own. You release that tension, it still goes down, okay? So it's not really an issue, and it's still very smooth. Like, I don't want to say that as a negative. Sometimes that little bit of stiffness is actually a positive because it means the knife doesn't just free flow easily. So, yeah, I would give it a 10 out of 10 on fit and finish. Price for the materials and the work. Well, this knife here on White Mountain, it's $99, but if you use a 10% code, you can get it for $90. So for $90, you're getting 14C28N, which is a budget steel, probably the upper end of the budget steel, but still a budget steel. You're getting a satin blade, a very nice satin blade. You're getting crystallized titanium handle scales. Now, let me tell you, the process for crystallization isn't necessarily cheap. Titanium is already, you know, a pricier material for good titanium as is. But to crystallize it is a process, and most crystallized knives aren't under 100, let alone $90. So yeah, I'd say it's a pretty good price, especially since you're also getting different colored hardware, and you're getting red here. You know, these are just all extra steps, and I think they did a pretty good job for the price. I would definitely pay $90 for this again, so I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 on price for the materials as well. Smooth action and fidgetivity, yeah, You can reverse flick, you can thumb flick, you can use the axis lock. Great action, great fidgetivity. So a 10 out of 10 on that as well. And the Drop Bear is living up to its name as one of Kizer's most popular models. Is it easy to carry? It isn't lightweight. Yeah, very lightweight. Very, like for a full titanium knife with what I'm to assume as steel liners. Yeah, very lightweight. Very, very, very lightweight. I mean, it's not necessarily a thick knife. You know, if we bring the Militol back out here, these are probably about the same thickness, I would say. And it's not really a thick knife at all. It's not a heavy knife. The Penguin is heavier for sure. And the Elementum, granted the Elementum doesn't have near as much metal. The Elementum is heavier as well. So yeah, this knife's very lightweight, very fidgety, and very easy to carry. So this clip is done very well. It's kind of big for the size of the knife, but it works very well. And you're gonna have barely anything sticking out of your pocket. So I would give it a 10 out of 10 for that category as well. Easy to maintain, clean, and sharpen. Well, here's one tiny little issue to me that this knife has. Outside of it already being an axis style locking mechanism, which can hinder the maintenance a little bit because it's a little bit more of a pain dealing with the spring system that's in here. Basically how it works is this lock in here does kind of like this. I don't know, but the spring, you pull it back, two springs are disengaging the lock when you pull it back. So when you take this knife apart, you see how the knife's locked in place right there. You pull this back, it disengages those springs, and the blade can come down. When you take this knife apart, you have to deal with those springs, and it's not too hard to take them out, but putting them back in can be rather tricky sometimes. So yeah, not to mention you kind of have dual layer metal here, and I can see you at least have one set of screws with those barrel spaces there on the inside. I'm not sure what the deal is there, because those screws aren't present on the outside, but there's a barrel spacer there for them. So that's interesting. And there's a lot of things that look like to unscrew on this one. So not to mention you have the dreaded double-sided pivot, and what that means is you're going to have to basically hold one side in and unscrew the other most of the time. Now sometimes you can get lucky and you don't have to do that, but a lot of times you're gonna have to do that. So it's just things to be aware of. It's hard to knock, or it's hard to dock points on the knife just because of the locking mechanism they used, but it does in fact make it harder to maintain and clean as opposed to say a liner lock where you literally, the lock is just a part of the frame and you just take the knife apart and that's it. This is definitely easier to take apart, maintain, and clean and stuff than this knife is. Like that's just how it is. So I feel like I do got to deduct it half a point. Or you know what, since it has the double pivot, let's deduct it a whole point and make it a 9 out of 10 for this category. So this knife is dang near perfect. If you're not worried about taking it apart, this is a perfect knife. Like, hands down, this would go in my perfect knife list. To me, has everything I want in a knife, has everything I look for in a knife. I suppose if you don't like axis locks, you're not going to like this knife. I believe they do make some Drop Bear 2s without axis locks, but most of them that I've seen have it in them. This is a great knife. I see why everybody likes it. I myself like it a lot, especially in this color scheme. It's very different from anything else that I own, and that's what I like. My collection is very unique and has a bunch of different things in it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you like the Drop Bear 2? Do you like this specific type of Drop Bear 2? Let me know, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.